Thank you everyone for joining us for the third AP Insight Calculus session for 2017-2018 school year. We have done 2 other sessions this school year, and those are recorded as well, posted to the AP Insight page. I'll show you in a little bit where you can access those if you are able to attend and are interested in sources and information about that you guys are engaging in the chat over here. And you do have the option at the top of the menu in your window to like raise your hand if you want us to like pause and or to let us know over the chat section if you can. Now I'm being told that I'm very faint in the presentation. 1 second. Okay, I'm back on, I think. If you guys can hear me, could you just type something into the chat box and we'll see if... Okay, awesome. Thank you. You guys are being really patient. I appreciate it. Okay, so on this slide I was just introducing our AP Calculus consultants who have joined us this evening. We're joined by Peter Kazmar and Andy Schrader. They are not only AP Calculus teachers of many years and have a lot of experience to help us excuse me, just in terms of the course itself, but they're also AP Insight consultants, which means that they're deeply familiar with the platform and the resources that are available there. They present to other teachers about how those resources can be used, and they use them in their own classrooms as well. So each of them is going to like chime in a little bit and have sections of the presentation where they're going to talk you through the way they use things also. All right, so for this evening's agenda, we're going to talk through a few things. We're going to start off with a brief recap of AP Insight, just for those of you who haven't joined us for one of the earlier sessions. Some tips for navigating to certain planning tools that are on AP Insight, things that we're going to be talking about later in this session so that you know where to go to get to them. Remember that this session is recorded, so you can always go back and look at that segment to remind yourself where to find something. We're going to have some time where Peter and Andy are going to be able to talk through some of their own reflections and tips for managing your time when you're incorporating AP Insight resources into an already pretty packed course. We'll definitely leave some time for additional participant questions, and we'll try to answer those along the way as we go also, and leave some time for open discussion. And then we'll wrap up with some related resources and next steps that might be helpful for you.
Hey, Peter, we cannot hear you, Peter.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah,
Yes.
we got you.
Okay, so have you heard none of this slide, or let's see, where am I going here?
No,
All right, well,
none of the slide
let
at
me
all.
start from the top then.
Okay.
Say again?
Yes, go ahead and start from the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. Okay, AP Insight is a combination of instructional resources and assessment to help focus on 10 challenge areas. And those challenge areas are areas that have been identified as both difficult to teach and difficult for students to learn. So there have been a set of resources to help teachers prepare to teach, to assess students, and to provide avenues for repair, if you will, if a student has struggling with any one of those uh, challenge areas. Uh, the idea is that those challenge areas are foundational to college level achievement, but again, difficult to teach and hard for kids to learn. It uses a set of formative assessments to help students to identify student misunderstandings during the instructional cycle so that targeted resources can be provided to help close those gaps, to help kids understand the material before major assessments and end of the course assessments like an AP exam. Uh, we should note that the resources are not comprehensive. In other words, they don't cover every aspect of the AP course. For example, slope fields, aren't necessarily seen there. It's assumed, however, that all the content in the course is being taught, but these resources just provide targeted support for those 10 critical areas. And again, the idea is that the formative assessments in AP Insights mirror the material and the structure of the AP exam, but not to the same degree as the actual AP exam items. Because the idea is not this end of the year final assessment, but rather they're intended to target and expose student misunderstandings so we can provide feedback and help to fix those misunderstandings, working through some steps. Again, the things to note are that the focus of the AP Insight program is on content area that has been identified as challenging and foundational to the course. And the resources are flexible enough to adapt to already the way you're working the course. Okay, let's talk about navigating to the planning tools on AP Insight, where you'll find that on the AP Insight site. There's a lot of material on the AP Insight site, and when you have opportunity, it's good just to sort of peruse it, to maybe even pop open a challenge area and to examine all the resources that are there. But we just want to take a moment to show you where to go to access some of the resources we're talking about in this presentation in particular. Okay, so let's take a look at the topic translation. The topic translation gives you an overview of how the building blocks and the challenge areas map into the course topics. It's a helpful guide that outlines where the topics show up and how they're addressed in AP Insight. It's where the relevant essential knowledge from the course and the exam description have been listed. And right here is a zoomed-in view of the topics assessed in the area and volume unit and how those topics align with each building block in the challenge area. So, for example, under area and volume, applications of definite integrals, building block A, area with vertical slices, and building block B, area with horizontal and vertical slices. In building block C, volume of solids and known cross sections. Then building block D, volume of solids of revolution. Okay, let's move onward. Okay, if you take a look at the AP Insight site, if you look under the Strategies tab and scroll down, you'll see both a completed sample and a blank template that are available for you to download. You'll also find, right there it is, okay. It's like the second tab down, right? There's a blank and there is a sample topic that's been already filled out for you that you can look at to guide you in filling out your own. There's also a unit planning calendar. One of the most useful tools for any teacher is a unit plan, sort of a sketch and a calendar to outline what you're doing in class on any given or upcoming unit. The unit plan provides a high-level overview of the content being covered, as well as the learning activities and assessments. So considering this unit by unit gives you a sort of a global picture of sort of tying in the AP Insight resources. You can see that there's a lot of detail below, and excuse me. All right, apologies for that. Let's see. You can see that in the sample provided on AP Insight, under the area and volume, you can see that there's a lot of detail and a color key indicating which kind of resources is being referred to. Note that there is a detailed walkthrough of this sample in a webinar in session 3, recording posted on the AP Insight site. Tiffany will show you how to access these recordings at the end of the presentation. Okay, to get to the unit planning calendar, unit planning calendar, again, go to the strategies at the tab at the top of the home page and scroll down to plan your units. From there, you can download the sample unit. From there, you can download the sample unit planning calendar and a blank unit planning calendar. So you have an example and a template that you can fill out as fits your course best. In the end, there's the next steps guide. So the next step guide is a tool for helping students reflect on the quiz questions that they got wrong. There are links that will lead them to explore and solidify understanding. it's structured in a way to guide their thinking about what misconceptions they may still have and what action steps they can take to help correct those misunderstandings. This process of reflection not only helps kids address content misunderstandings, but also gives them a model as to how to reflect on their own learning, which is going to be an essential skill as they move on into career and college readiness. Uh, the So there's the building blocks next step guide. I'll say that one of the resources that I've used most in my course are the student progress sheets. Those are a review of the particular unit I'm working on, and there are 3 columns: agree, disagree, and a reason for student agreement or disagreement. I'll do this generally before a quiz or a test at the end of a unit to help kids to sort of solidify their misunderstandings. It's a good set of questions because students get a statement, they have to agree or disagree, and then provide a reason for their agreement or disagreement. Time management with AP Insight. What you want to remember is that AP Insight tools are flexible. You can use whichever one you like in any order that best fits you. You can replace an existing activity with a performance task. The performance tasks are student-centered and tied to specific topics in a building block. And that allows you to see the level of student misunderstanding without having to design your own activity from scratch. Because they address the material you're already teaching, it's not an add-on, but you can use these materials in lieu of other activities. The building block quizzes. I've used these quite a bit online. They're just a short set of questions. The students take these quizzes on phones or on computers, and the results are immediate. I mean, it saves me grading time. It provides feedbacks for individual student responses. And finally, assigning from the Next Steps guide as homework help kids reflect on what they misunderstood. The guide from the guide, along with the assigning the ACT resources from the quiz, can help win back time down the road. I mean, it's not something you're going to have to patch up later if the students are able to patch them up now. The other thing I like about the Next Steps guide, it shifts some of the responsibility on the students to repair their own misunderstanding.
Yeah, Peter, also when they take those building blocks, a lot of times we give them quizzes and there's really no reflection, or there's most of the reflections in teacher. What you're talking about is those next step pieces, and the reflections piece is something that really the kids want to engage in. They really want to know what it is they didn't understand. They want to go through the choices and why each choice was not correct or the distractors were not correct. So I use it similar to you.
Yeah, and it's customizable to the kids, and that's a nice aspect of it as well. Okay, the building block quizzes. Okay, to see where they are, go to the Assessments tab, and you can filter and choose the building block quizzes any number of ways. To get to the building blocks quizzes, just go to the Assessment tab at the menu at the top, and it'll take you a new page where you can do your search. You can search by building block quizzes and very easily take a quick look at the questions by topic, then assign them to your students directly if you want. And I've done this multiple times, and I can say that it does work really, really well. So here's a listing of the quizzes you can see, right? B, computing limits, differentiating, continued algebraic functions quiz, and so on and so forth. There are a number of them, and they're short. I'll assign them perhaps at the last 5 or 8 minutes of class, maybe 10 minutes of class is probably a little more reasonable. and it gives me some good feedback to think about and plan for the next class, right? If I look at how the kids did on a quiz, I can see if there were any common misunderstandings that I may want to address, in classes as an entire group, or if there are just a few kids who had certain misunderstandings, then I can sort of develop or point them to different resources to repair those. Okay, let me ask if you have any questions. And if you do, if you would just enter them into the chat box. While you're doing that, I'll tell you one thing that AP Insight has allowed me to do. Our school district is sort of an interesting school district. We have we have both ends of the economic spectrum, and we have a group of students who traditionally just would not sign up for an AP course. It just wasn't in their purview of what they thought they were able to do. But what I managed to do was to convince administration to let me pilot a class where we selected students from a group of students who would not traditionally take an AP course, at least not at our high school. And I did manage to get a class last year, and this year I have a slightly larger class of students who are, doing well with the support and the formative checks in AP Insight. And, I expect them to do reasonably well in the AP exam. These are kids who wouldn't take AP, or if they did, they might be scoring ones and twos, but I'm expecting threes and fours from this group of kids. And these are kids who, again, would not have taken an AP Calc course and probably would have struggled in the way the AP Calc course is taught. But with this set of formative checks, it's really helped solidify understanding for kids along the way to a point that I think they'll be reasonably successful come May.
And while you guys are still thinking about other questions you might have, a couple things I've noticed how I've used this thing, and to talk about flexibility, we've had all the snow, plenty of snow days, and what the AP Insight's allowing me to do is allowing me to do some flipped classrooms, allow them to see some instruction online that I do, and it's kind of hard to engage with the students on how well they understand it. So what I do is then shortly after assign one of the AP Insights. The one I particularly just recently did was this op setup building block quiz, and through that building block quiz, I was able to present them their results and kind of indicate what their common misunderstandings were, and then readdress those. Even though I wasn't in the class with them, I was able to do that online. Again, pretty much the only way I was able to do that was by using one of the building block quizzes that fit in perfectly at the time I needed it. It also has allowed me another tool I use it for is I do have students that will go through the calculus course in a much rapid pace than a normal student would, and it'd be very difficult for me to do so without this tool. They're basically independent learners that are sometimes sophomores or even I've had a ninth grader that's independently studied through calculus, and with the AP Insight has allowed me to help them clarify any misunderstandings without having to address them directly. And again, it just adds one more tool to my toolkit to broaden the spectrum. So when we start and write these WEPs or written educational plans for the gifted kids, it becomes a real easy evidence that we're providing them resources.
Andy, I think you've hit on a real important point. I think sometimes we kind of look at AP Insight, or you folks can think about AP Insight. It's just another resource, like all the others. And in a sense, it is that. You can pull in some of the performance tasks to replace things you've already done. But I think what I found that it also does is it increases efficiency. I thought about that when you were saying how you used it to mitigate the effect of the snow days, which incidentally, I have not seen my kids for a full week since the new year started, but yeah, I think you can definitely use AP Insight to increase efficiency to make up for the kind of lost time that we're experiencing right now with the cold and the snow out here. Good comment. Other questions, Cynthia or Amanda or Carla? But Cynthia, just to throw a comment your way, since you are an AP coordinator, I think it could be used as if you had a teacher motivated enough to give it a careful look, you could increase your AP enrollment. We've got we've got 30 more kids this year taking AP Calculus than they would have a year or two ago, and I credit that largely to using AP Insight in the classroom. I see Cynthia's typing, and while you are, I'll just say the formative checks are awesome because it slows kids down. It helps them think back and look at what they're doing, what they're understanding, what they're misunderstanding, and it just patches all these little holes along the way before a major assessment. Andy, what other resources have you used from AP Insight?
As you were mentioning before, you had you use this resource in a kind of reflective tool, and what I did is I spent a lot of time looking at my IPR. I can't remember who's the second year teacher, but you starting to get these IPRs, these reports, and I'm starting to dig into them real rich. And as you do so, you get a lot of the jargon or what specific objectives I'm consistently weak in or strong in, and it allows the tool is very flexible, and therefore I can use it to enhance my weaknesses. And for example, I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember particularly what portion of the IPR I was weak on because we've already gone through that part. But it was I can't remember, but in any case, it was one clear thing that I used it for. And what I basically did is search through the building block quizzes, through the search that you showed them, through the MPAC search, and through the big building block, big ideas, and I sorted through and picked, and I got all pretty much the ones I'm going to use for the whole year to work on specific uh, mathematical practices. And so it's
Okay.
it's helped me have a resource
Mm-hmm.
that's very directive to what I need.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I'll just highlight again, if you haven't had the chance to take a look at the student progress sheets, that may be my favorite piece of AP Insight. Just it's a short exercise. I usually have kids do that with a partner, and they discuss it, they agree, disagree, and then they agree on a reason, and then we pull together. They'll work on that for depending on how much I give them, maybe about 15 or so minutes. Then we'll pull together, and it just lets us fine tune and whittle away the misunderstandings and just hone in on whatever concept we're looking at. So they walk away with the essentials, and I found that has helped my kids significantly come quiz or test time. Cynthia, thanks for your comment. Uh, yeah, I would just strongly urge you find some highly motivated AP teachers, give them a good look at this resources. And I don't have any doubt that, in the right hands, you can definitely increase some AP enrollment. And of course our administrators all love that. Good. Okay. If there's any way you can, I would say get those motivated teachers and give them some time on a staff development day. I don't know what your particular situation is, but just to give them a half a day or so where they could just play around and explore the resources. It really is worthwhile just to take the time to sit down and to tease apart everything that's there in all four pieces of AP Insight: the prepare piece, the teach piece, the assess piece, and the act piece. It's There's a lot of really, really good stuff there put together by a lot of very, very talented, successful AP teachers. Okay, I see Cynthia's typing. Uh,
Cynthia, also be surprised how quickly the students do pick up on this tool. As a matter of fact, they probably pick up on it faster than you do. They'll find all those next step tools on their own. I pretty much did little or no guiding in terms of afterwards because, and I've been teaching for 27 years. This technology is much more familiar to them, and so they just dig in and they just keep rolling and clicking and going, "Hey, did you know we can do this?" I'm like, "Yes, I did," and they roll and they get involved and they start talking to each other. Here's why I didn't understand it, and yes, they are correct. I don't get it because of this, and now I do understand it. So the tool, once you get them in, it's actually really easy to get them signed in. They'll get it right away as soon as you give them a link. They'll be in and ready to go.
right. And that again takes me back to what I think I mentioned earlier, Andy. It's it increases efficiency. I mean, there's some time in sort of figuring out AP Insight and seeing everything that's there, but there are a lot of resources there to help you do that. But once that's done, it really does increase my efficiency in the way I allocate my time and planning for the course. And you're right. I mean, kids just need a little nudge, and they can take off in any number of other directions. It's not difficult for them to do. Awesome. Okay, thanks, Cynthia. Alrighty. Guiding questions. For those of you who used AP Insight resources, are there any other time management tips you would recommend? You've heard from Andy and myself. Anything you'd like to throw into the pot for consideration? All right, differentiated instruction is the big buzzword in our school district now. And sometimes I guess that means is sort of creating individualized lesson plans. Not that that's always easy with a class of 30. But if you have kids at different levels, you might can think about how you might use AP Insight resources to differentiate to their individual needs in a unit plan. If you want to see some tips, go to page 1 of the Next Step Guide. If most of the class needs support with one specific misunderstanding, plan to use a student resource for misunderstanding under the recommended steps guide with your entire class. Or you can target it with individual students or small groups. Okay, Tiffany, related resources and next steps. Can we throw this back into your lap?
Yes, you can. I'm going to assume my microphone is working right now until you guys tell me otherwise. Yeah, so I want to show you guys some other things that are going to be hopefully helpful, possibly from an AP Insight perspective, but definitely like related to the course itself. Like we've been designing a lot of support resources for AP Calculus in general, so these are available to all of you as just regular AP Calculus teachers, you and any colleagues or friends that you have who are teaching the same course. All right, so let's start off with where would you find the recordings that we've been mentioning about these sessions. Every session has addressed a different topic, and so if you're like, oh, I'd like to know more about that particular resource, we probably have something posted about it, so we'd really encourage you to check it out. Here's where you go to get to those. So you're on the main page here. You want to go to the strategies menu at the top and then select the option that says connect via the PLC webinar series, and it'll bring up a new page that shows you the series of recorded sessions that are available for you to watch and listen to. So those are there for all of you who are AP Insight teachers, right? You can log in there and check it out on the strategy section. And then for all AP Calculus teachers, we also have available what we call our teacher modules. This is a series of online interactive modules that include new practice questions, new like able to be like shared. They're non-secure items, so you can use them in your classroom. You can give them for homework, but they're written by the folks who help write the actual AP items also, and so they're very robust and great practice for your students. There are videos of teachers modeling strategies on there, so actual AP Calculus teachers showing some of the activities that they do. There are downloadable lesson handouts that correspond to those activities, so you can try those actual lessons in your class if you want. And there's also scoring practice, like a whole section of each module that allows you to learn about how those practice questions would be graded, like if it was part of the reading, and what some of the rationale is for awarding points on each of those elements, so that you can then look at your own student samples, like if you give that practice question to your students, and you can see how you would then score them when they turn in their responses. And it's interactive, so you can actually go through real student sample practice of students who tried answering that question. You can award points and get immediate feedback on it also. So you can see from this list in the menu that we have a whole series there. There are 8 modules altogether, and you can also earn professional development credits for those if you are in a state or district that requires additional like ongoing learning or submitting like certificates of educational credits. You actually, when you finish each of these modules, you get a certificate at the end for a certain amount of credits, so that may also be something worth looking into for you. And each of these topics relates to a particular, each of the modules is shown in the context of a particular topic in the course, even though there's a lot of applicability throughout other topics for that type of strategy. And so we unpack that in the module also, so you know, oh, I don't have to do this just for limits. I could do it when I also get to fundamental theorem of calculus later. But you can see that there's like sub-menus for each one, and you can like sort of focus on the things that you care about, or you can watch the whole thing. So I just wanted you to know that that's available for you. And if you're like, well, this sounds awesome, how do I get to it? Well, this is the page. Sorry, this is just more resources I'm showing you. It's all the stuff that's like downloadable, the types of questions you can get to. All right, so let's say you're trying to get to the teacher modules. You want to just go to the home page for your course. You can either go to the AP Calculus AB page or the BC page. It's going to be the same link and process no matter what. Formally, it is known as Teaching and Assessing AP Calculus. In shorthand, we call it the teacher modules. But if you're searching for something, that's essentially the name of what you're looking for. But I've also put on this tab here the actual direct website for it. If you like are absolutely desperate and you just want to like go directly there, this link right here, you can like put that into your browser if you want, and that will take you directly there. But let's say you're on the course homepage and you're like, how do I navigate to it? Then you just want to make sure you're on the main course tab of that course page, because there are other tabs in that menu. And then it's one of the first things that shows up on that screen. So in the important updates section is one of the first things that we have at the course, because it's important stuff and we want to make sure everyone sees it. And so you'll see there the part that says Teaching and Assessing AP Calculus, and it tells you where you can go to learn more about it or to log in. And if you're like, well, that's great, but like my school can't afford more resources, or well, what's the budget for this? It's all absolutely free for every AP Calculus teacher. All you need is your College Board login. Like we know that you teach AP Calculus because you've gone through the audit process, or you've had to be registered in some way as the teacher of record for that course. And so you just put in your credentials, your College Board login info, and your password, and that's it. You have access like right away. And if you're like, oh wait, but I'm the first year teacher, or I haven't, this is I haven't actually gone into the course audit process yet, because just know that that deadline is coming up soon if you want to do that. But just in case someone's listening into this recording and that applies to you at some point down the road for a future year, just know that you don't have to have been approved yet for the course audit process to be able to access the resources. We know that the course audit process can be lengthy sometimes, and you don't necessarily have that approval immediately, like right off the bat from the first of the year. And so we still want you to be able to access these resources because they're hopefully like helpful instructional tools and tips and things to help you teach the course from like the day it starts, right? So all you need, if you haven't gone through the course audit process yet, is to just create your account. Just start the process by basically registering so that you get that login info. And you can still be going through the process and getting like your syllabus approved and all of that for the the early months of the school year. That's totally fine. But you, as long as you have that email and the login info and password, you'll be able to access these modules. And then we have another forum excuse me, on the AP Insight platform. So here we are back with just the group of you that are AP Insight teachers, not all AP Calculus teachers, but AP Insight Calculus teachers. We do have an online community there that's similar to the online teacher discussion boards that we have for each of the AP courses, where we really encourage folks who are a part of the AP Insight community to share your best practices, post questions or tips for other AP Insight teachers. If you're like wondering how to get to that and to see what some of the discussions have been so far, you just go to the main platform, to the menu at the top that says discussions, and it'll take you there directly. You'll see also that some of the posts are by someone named Margarita Morales. She's our moderator for that forum, and that just means that she's also an AP Calculus teacher who uses AP Insight. And so sometimes she'll post things that she's doing or ask questions to sort of guide the discussion for other folks who may be interested in that topic. And you can always post things there, and she'll get a notification, and she's really responsive to those things. So if you have additional questions, you can post them there on that forum. And finally, we do have a dedicated email address that you can contact if you have any questions, anything ranging from like technical issues, login problems, classroom, like accessing resources and things, all the way to just sort of like other questions or ideas of like, some of these tools that we talked about. They'll make sure to direct you to the right person if you email this address that's on the screen, apinsight@collegeboard.org. And what I'm going to do is bring over to the page so you can see it, the feedback survey. It's a link. I will also post it directly in the chat box, so you might be able to access it a little more directly, but the browse button should come up when you click on the web link. It should only take about 2 minutes, so we'll go ahead and end the session about now. We'll stay on for a few minutes in case you guys have additional questions, but we'd just love for you to go right there to fill out the survey, let us know how things went. We have like numerous apologies for all the technical and audio issues that occurred, but we really appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. So thanks again and have a good evening, and good luck with the rest of the year and with the exam.